I'm not sure if it'll be worth recording that. Maybe we're going to just sit up here and just promote our stuff the whole time.
Whatever works. I mean, people don't have to listen to the crap. I just put it out there if they want it.
And that is the first rule for if you want to make a podcast. Do it because you're going to do it no matter what.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's like, if you're not having fun, then why are you wasting your time?
Right. So, welcome to Podcasting 101, a.k.a. Crash Course to Podcasting, or Breaking into Podcasting. Basically, if you want to get into podcasting, you are in the right room. I'm going to introduce my cohort here. He was here with me last year. I know he goes by Fightbait because I forget his actual name. But
I don't have a real name.
He does a podcast called Fightbait.
Yeah, I'm John Paul. I am, I guess, an audio engineer in training now. I work at AM 950. Been doing the podcasting thing for about 5 years. Only really got good at it within the last couple of years. There was a lot of stumbling around because I didn't know what I was doing. And so that's why I like to do panels like this, to help people not make those same mistakes. Fightbait.com, jpmadison.com. I also work for anime3000.com. That's it.
And then I'll introduce myself. I'm Fes. I do some webcomics as well as a webcomics podcast that's been going on for, we're in our 6th year now, called the Webcomic Beacon at webcomicbeacon.com. And I've learned a lot about podcasting through that and a lot more about webcomics, but we're not going to talk about comics here. But if we want to talk about our beginnings a little bit, I started my podcasting experience. Actually, it's not really podcasting. I started my sort of make my own radio and experience with a cassette tape and interviewing my brother as he was pretending to be somebody else and splicing in this awesome music track from Nintendo 64. Oh, it was radical is what it was. Did you ever do that?
I did. I've been meaning to dub it onto the computer. I found it was me and my buddy Graham making just the most ridiculous, like we would be listening to like a radio show already, and then we would overdub like the word balls every once in a while. That was really the extent of it. We never put music in there.
Oh, you didn't make your own mock radio broadcast? You just sort of like hijacked?
Yeah, well, we would pretend, and then we would also intercut other things. It was more of a variety show, sketch comedy.
Who else has made their own home cassette video? Well, I don't know how young or old the audience is. CD, whatever. Their own homemade. All right, yay! My actual very first podcasting experience was when I was first introduced to it. They would also broadcast their show live on Ustream while recording it, and I was like, "Oh man, this is cool!" Because I don't get out enough on the internet. And I was like, I've never seen this before. This is how you do podcasts." So when I first started doing the Webcomic Beacon, I tried to do like a live show every single time. But even before that, it was just like I'm recording like. I had this podcast called 2 Cents and 60 Seconds. It was a minute long. Each episode was a review of a webcomic. And it was pretty fun to try because you had to like sit there and figure out how many words does it actually take for 60 seconds. And then I wish I kept all the outtakes of me just like talking really fast, going over fuck, damn it. Just starting over a million times. It was great.
Did you not script it?
Well, I did script it, but I tumble over my mouth all the time. It was great. So, who here has a podcast already?
I don't know what podcasting is.
All right. So, I'm pretty sure everyone here is familiar of what a podcast is. All right. So, we'll skip that one part. So, if you're looking to do a podcast, you probably already got an idea of what you want it to be about. One thing about that, there's probably a podcast about that already. So I would typically ask, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to bring that would give a reason why they should listen to yours versus theirs?
Well, I think a lot of that comes from what your overall goal is, because if your goal is to just have fun, it doesn't really matter. If you want to stick out, then yes, that is absolutely what you want to do. But there's a lot of people...
If you just want to do your own thing because you want to do it, then
exactly.
No rules for you. Just go ahead.
I used to be a lot more, I guess, judgmental of the podcasting community. And then I realized that, like, if they're having fun, who cares? Somebody's listening to it. There's always, no matter how good or bad your show is, there's always going to be at least one person that thinks everything you do is amazing.
Your mom.
Yes. So, as long, the ultimate thing that matters is, are you having fun? Because if you're not having fun, then stop.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting paid, then keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because not many people get paid to do it.
But I will also say that another aspect of what are you doing differently can be as simple as enough as, oh, I've got a great personality, or the co-host I'm going to have on, we got great chemistry. That can be different enough. Because a lot of times when you're listening to not visual material, so chemistry and personality goes a long way as far as the enjoyability of people listening to your podcast. I went to school in St. Cloud State University, and I would not listen to the radio, the radio station, because it just listen.
I would.
It's somebody. Here, let me read part of my notes that I have.
Well,
What experience do you have for telling how to start a podcast? Well, it's so boring and dry. It's like, that doesn't work.
Okay. I'm a little biased on this because I've worked with some of those people. A lot of it's because they're training people. Like, I've spoken to the people that run it. If it was a legit, like, they're bringing in revenue, yeah, most of those people wouldn't be on air. But the idea is that this is it's a learning experience.
Oh, okay.
So they'll let anybody on. If they're doing, like, a legit thing, like Trivia Weekend, so they put their top talent on Trivia Weekend.
So otherwise, it's like the public access.
Yeah, well, it's a college-run radio station. It's there specifically to prepare people to work in actual radio. So not many of them make it.
By the way, I have heard, I had it in public radio, public access radio. When I was I think I was in Colorado at the time. I had turned on the radio, or it was Nebraska, where there's like nothing, and there was like this guy. So I was hunting before, and there was this turkey, and it was pretty. And it was like that for like half an hour. I was thinking, I was
Why
waiting
did you
for
keep listening.
It was astounding. I was waiting for like some joke. Like, this was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it was like real, and there were people calling in.
That was probably paid, because actually at the station I worked for on the weekends, anybody with money can pay to be on the radio, and that's probably what that was.
Yeah.
That reminds me of this dude. His name's KJ Cisco. He does this awful podcast where, like, I listened to one episode, and there was like 20 minutes of silence. Then there was like 15 minutes where I think he was masturbating. There was a bit where he left for 5 minutes to go shave. And then at the end, he's like, well, I'll see you guys next week on another episode of the KJ Cisco podcast.
It's that avant-garde shit right there. So a couple of things. If that is what you want to do, you got to think about a show title. What do you want to call your show? Do a Google search. Make sure that there's not something else out there already, not too similar. Find something that's original, that you're not going to infringe on somebody's copyright, and also look for a URL that you can, even if you're not going to like buy your own host space and get like a free hosting, which we'll go into in a little bit, just getting a domain name, and so you can forward to wherever you're going to be, and people can bookmark that so they can find it in the future. $8 to $15 a year, depending on where you get it and what sale you got it on. It's cheap. When you get a URL, don't have words that can be spelled in other ways. Don't use letters, and don't use numbers in place of letters. Don't use numbers at all, because then you have to ask, is it the number or is it spelled out? Don't use. I would personally recommend not using hyphens or underscores. because that's another extra thing you have to say. A URL should be easy to say, spell, and remember. Fightbait, boom. Done.
I've never actually seen a website that uses an underscore before.
I don't think you can, but I know at least like a hyphen, dash, a
I've seen
tag.
a lot of hyphens.
Underscore is not acceptable.
Okay.
Special character.
The dash is probably also would cause problems.
Yeah, I mean...
Dash is okay. But
Or I meant the slashes, I'm sorry.
No, not slash. Yeah, and if you want to... Yeah, don't be creative with your URL. You can
Be
have
creative on the podcast.
Yeah, you can have your stupid little... You can have your creative URL as well if you also buy it.
Yeah.
But...
Because sometimes I'll just get bored and buy URLs. Like for a while, I had nightmareboat.com, which I think is up right now. I'm pretty sure I have to renew that because I keep getting these emails saying that my payment is overdue. So if anyone wants Nightmare Boat...
That sounds great for like a web fiction, actually.
That was what I was going for, but I'm incredibly lazy. So I never wrote it.
I started to... I had like 15 URLs at one point. I actually might have 17 right now.
Oh boy.
And I'm trying to... I've been letting some go.
Yeah.
Because there's no point
Gotta
to
let
it.
those URLs fly out of the nest, man.
Yeah. So, and so after you sort of like figure that out, don't talk about on Twitter what you're looking to name your show. I did this with, my first webcomic is called PSI, A Pessimistic Sense of Inadequacy. I was incredibly depressed at the time, if you couldn't gather that. But, so I was like, I should get a real domain name. I'm going to get maybe just psicomic.com. That'll be fine. The very next damn day, a squatter bought it and is sitting on it. There is no reason for somebody to have that URL at all. And it went to like a parking site. So you talk about something, somebody's going to come around and just snatch it up. So it's just stupid. So I went with webcomic. Haha, PSI webcomic.
Brilliant.
Yeah. They've since given it up, and I bought that too.
$15 wasted. Shucks.
Yeah, just out of spite, I guess I got it again. But so you want to think about where you want to be hosted. Where are you hosted?
I think I'm on HostGator these days. I've tried a couple. I tried Host Monster. I think it was called Host Monster. I was on iPage for a while, and it's really, my understanding is pretty much all of them, except GoDaddy. They're essentially the exact same thing. It's just find one that you like. They all function the same way for the most part. Some will have different interfaces. Like iPage I left because I didn't like the interface. I generally like the... I don't even know, because I don't know a lot of good words for these things, but the cPanel on like HostGator is what I'm used to. The iPage one was like cPanel 2.0 or whatever it was, and I couldn't find anything ever.
We should probably explain what that is. Basically,
It's
the
just
back
like the
end.
back end.
Yeah.
I almost never have to do anything with it. Once you set up your WordPress or whatever you're doing, you probably never have to go to cPanel.
I never need that. All I need to go is the MySQL. I always call it MySchool because I didn't know you had to spell it the SQL, but whatever. And an FTP access. That's really all you need. And a lot of times you don't even need to go to the database unless something's wrong.
Yeah, the only
most
time
part.
I've ever had to go in the database is if WordPress is not letting me do something that I know is possible, so I just manually overwrite it. Like, WordPress can be really picky. Let's say you made a page called subscribe, but you did it wrong or something, and then you tried to remake it, but it's not letting you create the page, but you can't access the old one. You can go into the database, delete the record of the old one, and then actually get it to work. And so I've run into that problem before, where I had to just delete things that I couldn't get to. So, I don't know. Over the head. Well, because what would happen is you'd make the page, I would delete the page.
So, okay, so...
Inside baseball.
So I gotta ask. So you're on HostGator right now.
Yes.
What is your actual hosting level or whatever the hell it is?
Whatever the basic is. You're not supposed to do that, but...
Are you saying you're on like the $5 a month unlimited and limited?
Yup.
You can't have that. No offense, you can't have that many listeners. Otherwise, you'd be affecting them, and they'd be like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, I get what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
because
I don't know.
the unlimited isn't really.
The thing is, it really depends because I've heard of podcasts that had that and had thousands without getting in trouble.
Really?
And I've heard of ones that would get a couple hundred and get shut down. I think it all depends on where you are on their radar. We generally will get between, I think lately it's usually about 200. The highest I've ever seen it is a couple thousand. But generally between 200 and 500 downloads.
That might be.
It's usually traffic spikes they watch for. So if there's something that's hitting their servers really hard for a short window, like, hey, I just released a podcast.
It's because anything that is essentially, especially at $5 a month, any sort of unlimited account, it's called shared hosting. You're actually on a big, say you're on one computer and a hard drive with a bunch of other people on that one computer or server or hard drive. And you're all sharing the resources. And if it looks like this one person's just hogging it all, we're going to shut you off for a while.
Yeah.
And that's what it's unlimited, but they will shut you down and probably say, you probably should upgrade.
Well, yeah, that's one of those things that I'll do it when the time comes, but I'm really bad about advertising. So I kind of I've reached this plateau that I'm okay with because I enjoy doing it. I don't need thousands of listeners. Realistically, as an anime podcast, like I think one of the most downloaded ones, Anime World Order, they get maybe a couple thousand downloads, and that's the height. Like they started off in like 2005. I don't have that kind of power that they do, so the numbers we get are pretty respectable for an anime podcast. Just considering that you don't become Anime News Network, they probably get several thousand downloads. But that's because they had name recognition.
Yeah, it's like when we had like a popular person on the Webcomic Beacon, I've had 1,000 downloads, and that was the My Little Pony episode. and we were linked on Equestria Daily.
We had a panel that one of our, I guess, co-hosts hasn't been on in a while, but he did a panel with a guy with glasses. That got like 2,000 downloads, but other than that, usually nothing to worry about in terms of pissing off the hosting.
People will come by and they won't stick around because they only want to, unless for some reason you convince them during the show. But
that's a whole different panel. That's a whole conversions and.
So looking at I've been fortunate enough to be hosted for free on 3 different websites in my time, because they thought it was a good investment. No, it was fine, but I'm going to have to actually start paying rent soon. So it's actually not a bad deal because I have like 17 gigabytes of space. I have 15 days of content. 17 gigabytes of space is not very much if you want to have a podcast archive. I think our archive from the last 5 years is at least 30 or 40 gigs. I mean, how many episodes do you have?
Oh, God. I don't know.
If I put all the shows together, I'd probably have 400.
Probably
at about an hour average.
Yeah, I think, because I've rebranded a dozen times. The very first one probably got about 60. The comedy show we did was about 170, I think, was like our last episode. We've been doing a news show that's probably got about 30 to 50. I don't know. I've done.
What numbers are you using right now? I'm confused.
Numbers of episodes.
Oh, episode numbers. Okay.
So I don't know. We probably have about what do
you save your MP3s as?
See, that's a new thing that I've learned.
Oh, you were saving them at like.
I was saving them too high.
Oh, that's probably why you have a lot more gigabytes than I do.
These days, well, because I went through a project where I was going to convert them down. But that's such a time-consuming thing when you have a couple hundred files to go through.
Yes.
These days,
you can automate that shit.
I don't know how.
Oh.
And the thing is that a lot of those automation programs, depending on the algorithm they're using, you might end up with a worse file in the end. Because there's different MP3 algorithms. The lame encoder is what it sounds like. It's not as good as like the one they use in like iTunes, and you'll get a lot more artifacts.
The H.2.
I don't know what the fuck it's called. Let's get super inside. MP3s were created by this group called Fraunhofer, and if you can use the actual algorithm they made, you can go down to lower bit rates without too much of a quality loss. If you use the lame encoder at a similar bit rate, you're going to, even somebody that doesn't know anything about audio will hear a difference. And so these days we do 64 kbps, 44.1K.
64, really?
Yep. And 16-bit for bit depth.
All right. We'll talk more about saving your MP3 in just a moment. I do want to go back to hosting a little bit.
Okay.
One thing that's great with hosting, I will get back to you, is for podcasts, there is an option if you don't want to, if you're fine on HostGator, that seems to be okay for about that much for a starting podcast. But there's like Podbean and Libsyn, and you just type in like free podcast hosting, and you usually get between a $5 and a $10 to $15, and like a stepped sort of thing where you have like a certain amount that you can upload per month, and then
I always worry about, like, Libsyn is the king of where you go to host your stuff, but it's very expensive.
Well,
if you're going, because what you said is it's not like how many episodes, it's how many megabytes are you uploading. So if you want to do like 4 2-hour shows a week, you can't. A week, I meant a month. You might not be able to do it, and you have to bump up to the 10 a month. Yeah, which that eats away at your wallet quick.
You could probably do 4 1-hour shows in a month.
Yeah, if you compressed them enough.
So how it works is like you get this amount to upload per month, and then after the month is over, that goes into archive mode, because most people, your shows are not going to get hit a whole lot after when they first come out. So okay, that just goes to the archive, that's fine, and then this month you got this amount. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't work for if you have a 16, 17, 30 gigabyte archive, you just can't do that. They won't do that. So if you're starting out, it is a possibility, and there's like a lot of options and benefits that they'll offer, like app integration and this and that.
Yes, it's absolutely. If you want the easy way to get your show out there, you don't have to know anything about anything. They make it incredibly easy. $5 a month, your show will be up like that. You can upload through their website. You don't even have to know what FTP stands for.
So, but question.
You mentioned that GoDaddy isn't like the other ones.
Oh, that's because they're evil. I'm sorry.
It's like why you don't use DreamHost. You don't use DreamHost. You don't use DreamHost.
I remember hearing that GoDaddy was very pro SOPA. And so a lot of people turned on them, and they use a lot of like...
And then they backpedaled. It's like, no, this is bad for business. We're not for SOPA.
A lot of people disagree with how they use scantily clad women to advertise.
So make enough money to afford a NASCAR, 3 attractive models, and a Super Bowl ad. So it's coming in somewhere.
Did you see where they killed an elephant?
I didn't know they killed an elephant.
Yeah, there was part in the news where apparently they killed an elephant and then watched a bunch of like natives like eat the elephant.
That's interesting. I don't have anything for that.
Elephantkiller.com. Buy it today. So
just redirects to GoDaddy.
So where the hell are we
talking about hosting?
Saving files. Let's before we talk about saving files, let's talk about making them.
Making the files.
So
this is where I wish I could draw things for you. I can explain to you what all those crazy numbers mean when you're starting your file.
Well, I was more thinking like microphones.
Oh, microphones?
And internet. Okay. It's like there's a couple of ways.
We'll do microphones.
There's a couple of ways to do your podcast. You can have like a you show where you're just talking about whatever, and that's fine. Then there's like the sort of, you got like, hey, somebody else here next to you, and you can record in the same space. That's a lot different than saying you have to connect with somebody over Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that to record a show. So there's a couple of different ways to approach this. The easiest is like, say you buy an expensive microphone like this, and you can record and even go out and do interviews with other people. Very handy, high quality stuff if you're not spending at least $100 at least on a digital recorder.
I would not touch that. This is your audio signal.
Right.
Don't do that.
So,
well, see, now
if you're not spending at least $100, you're probably getting an inferior product.
Now,
rule of thumb.
There's a lot more to it than that, and I actually have. Okay, so the $100 thing, you need to look at what kind of microphone. You need to look at reviews of the microphone, because a $100 XLR mic is going to be different than a $100 headset USB mic.
Right.
If you get a $100 USB headset mic, it's still probably going to sound like shit. It might sound better than the $50 one, but a lot of times that extra money is making it more comfortable or putting fancy colors on it.
I meant more so these devices.
Oh yes, if you're getting a digital like this one, I think it was $250.
Yeah,
it actually sounds pretty bitchin'. It just records right on an SD card. If you have a reader and like an external reader, or like the Mac has the SD card slot in it, it makes it very easy to get the audio on there.
And there's a lot of like connections and plugins, and you can always make sure when it says digital that it has a plug to actually plug into your computer so you can read the files. I made a mistake like that one time. It was digital, yes. You couldn't plug it into your computer.
That's rough.
Also, this is a line out or a monitor plugs, which is it's plugged right into the camcorder. So I get not the camcorder audio quality, I get this audio quality on it, and it's been very beneficial for me. So, and also these are investments. If you feel like podcasting isn't for me, you can sell this. You can't sell a used $15 headset because it's crappy.
You could probably resell your XLR mics though, like this.
Oh yeah,
I think this is that's SM48. I don't know what these ones cost. I know the 58 is like about $100, $80. You could easily sell that. It's like one of the most popular microphones.
Yeah.
Get half your money back like that.
And even the quick and easy way, it's like, I'm not sure what your familiarity is with Behringer. I brought this up before, but they have like, it's called a Podcast Studio kit. It's like $150 or less, depending on if there's a sale or not. Comes with a mixing board, thing to connect into like an analog mixing board, thing to connect to the USB, a decent microphone, and decent headphones, and it will get you going and started. It's basically like an external sound card for your computer. It makes things a lot easier if you want to do a simultaneously live show and record it if you're doing Ustream. I haven't touched live shows in a while because it just started.
I don't like live shows.
It just started getting screwed up with all like the different programs, this and that. They all want to use the audio settings, so I avoided that. But I hear Google Hangouts has been doing pretty well for a lot of people. So I can't say anything about that yet, but I'll probably look into it.
I guess my problem with the live show is I'd run into problems with scheduling where I couldn't guarantee that I could start at 8 because I'd always have to stay late for work. There's a lot more issues, like if I want to do sounds at the same time, finding a reliable program to play those sounds when I push the button, that can be troubling. If you run into problems with Skype where the connection's really bad, well, you're live right now, so
yeah, but that's the live show. You still got the file that you'll put out on Monday.
Yes, true. I guess just over time, I prefer to do all of the post. Like I like putting the song in separately because then I have control of exactly what volume that is. Otherwise, if it's live, it's like, well, hopefully I got it right.
I've learned because I use Winamp and I'll pull like a file over there. But I have learned that if you play like system sounds on your computer, it's super loud. So I have to like drag the volume all the way down to like 5, and then it sounds normal. Otherwise, everyone's just like ah. But that's if you're trying to do stuff in the show. I don't do sounds a whole lot in the show unless it's like a one-off gag, or now the way I'm recording it, it's separate from my speakers, so I have a manual dial for my speakers, and then I'll turn the microphone to that if I want to play a sound clip that doesn't really matter. It's not like a big part of the show. It's mostly for like a gag, so it doesn't matter if it's full-on quality. But
generally I only use that if like somebody pulls up a YouTube video and I want to play the sound so people can hear it. Just because. Or like if we get a voicemail, I'll play that in real time. So
those are different ways. Things of consideration, and for blue microphones are also good, like sort of stand up USB sort of thing. They're about like $100 for like the good ones.
There's actually I realized this pretty recently. I'm just going to say 5 things. It might not actually be 5 things, but let's say there's 5 things that if they didn't exist, podcasting would not be here. Blue microphones, Audacity, Skype, Libsyn, arrogant people. I don't know.
And that's the other thing. The audio recording program, Audacity, is a free program. It'll do you just fine, even with the noise removal. I tried it for the first time, the noise removal part. It did fairly decent. I have a pay program that I've been using ever since it came out called Goldwave, which I swear by. Wow. It has awesome noise removal technology. And typically its noise removal is as simple as find a spot, or like when you're starting to record, everyone just be quiet for a moment so that we can record the background noise. And then you use like a couple split seconds or 1 second at the most. And then you just use that as an imprint. In GoldWave, you copy it. In Audacity, you make a noise profile.
Yeah, it's all the same.
And then you just select the whole thing, tell it to run its magic, and you tend to get really good quality of removing the sound without affecting vocals too much. Well, if you're recording in a high quality to begin with, like a WAV file, if you can't record in WAV, the highest MP3 quality you can figure out. You always want to edit and record with the highest quality you possibly can, because that'll make it easier later.